She hadn't been back in 20 years. Not since the night she gave up her baby and ran like hell from the past that branded her. Now Beverly Adams is back on the land that raised her. But she ain't the same girl who left. She's tougher, quieter, and carrying one hell of a secret. Her uncle's dead. The ranch is hers. And the man in charge now? Stanley Barrett. All muscle, sunburn, and hard lines. The kind of man who doesn't say much, but looks at you like he already knows everything. But here's the thing. That quiet ranch hand working under him. Just a kid with tired eyes and a fire in his gut. He might be Beverly's son. The one she gave up. The one her uncle somehow brought back to this very ranch. And the worst part? Stanley knows. He's known all along. Secrets like that don't stay buried forever. And when they rise, they burn hotter than a prairie fire. The dust trailed her like guilt. Beverly Adams gripped the wheel of her faded red '88 Chevy as the cracked two-lane highway narrowed to gravel. The truck coughed against the climb, spitting dirt and memory behind her. Out here, everything looked the same as when she left. Endless sky, brittle grass, fence posts leaning like old men too tired to stand straight. The same, but not softer. Split Creek Ranch hadn't changed much, but she sure as hell had. She rolled to a stop at the front gate where the wooden sign, chipped, weather-worn, still hung. Split Creek, established 1909. Her uncle's legacy, her new burden. She shoved the gear into park, cracked her neck, and stepped into the heat. Dust curled around her boots like it knew her name. Lol. A man stood waiting. Broad shoulders, worn jeans, scowl deep enough to bury a body in. He looked like trouble, and judging by the way her stomach twisted, the kind she'd forgotten how to resist. "Didn't expect you to show up in that thing," he said, nodding toward the truck. "And I didn't expect the welcome committee to look like it just crawled out of a Clint Eastwood flick," she fired back. The corners of his mouth twitched just once. "Stanley Barrett," he said. "Ranch boss. I ran the place with Roy. Been keeping it alive since he passed." She extended her hand. He didn't take it. "Beverly Adams," she said coolly, lowering her arm. "You Roy's niece?" he asked, looking her over. His eyes lingered, just long enough to make the air tighten. "Last I checked," she said, tugging her shirt hem down. It was hot, too hot for denim, but she hadn't wanted to show up in something soft. "He leave you a copy of the will, or are you just guessing who signs the checks now?" That got the faintest smirk out of him. Follow me," he said, turning. "I'll show you what's broken." She watched the way his back moved under that sun-faded shirt. He walked like the ground didn't dare move beneath him. They crossed the yard in silence, the wind kicking up dirt that clung to her like regret. Horses shifted in the corral, and a dog barked from under the porch. She could feel her uncle everywhere, his boots by the door, his old hat still hanging on the hook. But it was the silence inside the house that punched her hardest. No hum of radio, no humming from the kitchen, just ghosts. She stepped inside and took it in, the creaking floorboards, the smell of old leather and pine soap. A home frozen in time, or maybe just abandoned. "How long's it been since Roy passed?" she asked, voice low. 6 months, Stanley said. Heart gave out. Found him out by the feed trough, sitting like he was just resting. Beverly closed her eyes. She hadn't come to say goodbye. Hell, she hadn't even sent flowers. Stanley studied her. "He talked about you," he said. She looked up. "Did he?" "Not much," he admitted. "But when he did, it mattered." Before she could ask what that meant, A voice called out from the barn. A boy, no, a man, approached. Tall, lean, hat pulled low, with eyes that held something cracked and unfinished. He moved like he hadn't grown into himself yet, like he was still figuring out where the world ended, and he began. "Boss," the kid said, glancing at Beverly, then back to Stanley. "Fence is fixed, mostly." Stanley nodded. "This here's Cody. Works sunup to sundown and still don't know how to hold a hammer right." Cody smiled sheepishly. "Ma'am," he said, tipping his hat. Something inside her caught. It wasn't the way he said it. It was the sound of his voice, or maybe the shape of his mouth. A piece of her memory pressed forward, unwelcome. That hospital room, that tiny cry. That 1 second she let herself look before they took him away. She swallowed hard. "Nice to meet you, Cody." He lingered, eyes searching hers like he was trying to remember something that hadn't happened yet. "Go on," Stanley said, waving him off. When the boy was out of earshot, Beverly turned. "He yours?" Stanley barked a laugh. "Hell no. I'm not old enough to be his daddy." "Could have fooled me. You bark at him like one." He shrugged. "Kid's got potential, just doesn't know it yet." She nodded, then looked toward the hills, trying to quiet the noise in her chest. Cody. Something about him. But no, it couldn't be. Mo. That night she sat alone on the porch, sipping whiskey from a chipped glass, the sky lit with stars she'd stopped believing in. The wind smelled like dry hay and old memories. Somewhere behind her, a screen door creaked. She didn't turn. She knew it was him. "Long day," Stanley said. She exhaled. "Feels like I'm still in the middle of it." He didn't say anything, just sat in the chair beside her. The silence between them stretched, warm and sharp, like the heat before a lightning strike. He didn't look at her, but she felt it. The weight of his attention. The pull of something unspoken, coiled and waiting. "Why'd you come back?" he asked. She stared into the night. To make peace with a ghost. After a pause, he said quietly, "You got more ghosts than you let on." And she did. One with brown eyes. One who might be sleeping in the bunkhouse right now, not knowing how close he was to the truth. She glanced sideways, his profile lit by moonlight. He looked hard, worn, but something in her stirred. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was heat. Maybe it was both. Mornings on the ranch didn't wait for permission. By the time Beverly stepped out onto the porch, the sun had already climbed over the hills, dragging the heat with it. The light stretched long shadows across the yard, dust dancing in beams like ghosts with nowhere to go. She took a breath, smelled feed, leather, smoke, and sweat. Split Creek still had its scent, a mix of hard work and something older, like the memory of her uncle's cologne left to fade in the closet. Her shirt clung to her back already, and the day hadn't even started. Stanley was in the corral, working a young Mustang in tight circles. His shirt was soaked through at the shoulders, collar popped open just enough to see the red flush of his neck. He moved like a man who didn't waste effort, just rope, grit, and rhythm. Beverly leaned on the fence and watched, not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't not. He noticed her after a moment, nodding in that way of his, barely, like it cost him something. "You planning on learning by staring, or you want me to explain it while you try not to fall off?" "Keep talking like that, Barrett," she said, "and you'll be eating breakfast through a straw." He grinned then, a real one. It made his face younger, made her heart skip in a way she didn't like. "I'll get the saddle," she added, brushing past him. Their arms touched. just for a second. But it was enough to raise every hair on her skin. Cody was out by the fence line, working a post with a sledgehammer that looked too heavy for him. His shirt clung to his spine, and his face was set in that same silent focus she'd seen the day before. She brought him water. He took it, nodded thanks, and drank slow. "Stanley working you too hard?" she asked, shielding her eyes. He shrugged. "Hard's good. Makes the day feel earned." She nodded, not trusting her voice. His eyes met hers again, and this time there was something behind them. Not flirtation, not curiosity. Recognition. She felt dizzy. "You always live around here?" she asked. "No, ma'am. Foster care mostly. Bounced around. Ranch work steady, though. Feels real." She clenched her hands, digging her nails into her palms. "What's your last name?" she asked, voice too soft. "Don't use it much," he said. "Don't really belong to anyone." He smiled when he said it, but something in her cracked. That smile was too familiar. By noon, the heat wrapped the land like a blanket of iron. Beverly helped stack feed in the barn, sweat soaking through her shirt, hay sticking to her arms. Stanley came in behind her, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "You're not bad at this," he said, like it pained him to admit it. "I'm not here to play dress-up," she shot back. "Didn't say you were. Just, most people that come back to a place like this, they expect it to feel the same. But land don't care about your memories. It only remembers what you put in the ground." She studied him. "That your way of telling me to get lost?" He walked closer. "Number my way of saying you're not what I expected, and I don't do well with surprises." They stood face to face, sweat slick and close enough to feel each other's breath. Her lips parted. His eyes dropped for just a second. The silence stretched. Then Cody's voice called from outside, breaking it like a rifle shot. "Fence line's finished." Beverly stepped back first, flustered. Stanley exhaled, dragging his hand across his jaw. "We'll talk later," he said, and walked out. But she didn't think he meant about ranch work. That night, Beverly found an old first aid kit in the mudroom while digging for aspirin. Inside, buried beneath gauze and iodine, was something folded and yellowed with time. A piece of paper. A letter. Her name was written in her uncle's unmistakable scrawl. She sat on the steps and unfolded it with trembling fingers. "Bev, I found him. You may not be ready to hear that. You might not even believe it. But I saw his eyes, same as yours when you were little. I put him to work here, not because I pity him, but because I think he deserves the chance to meet you on his terms. Let him come to you. You'll know when the time's right. Roy." Her breath hitched. She clutched the paper to her chest, rocking slightly as the porch creaked under her. It couldn't be true. It shouldn't be true. But her heart was already past denial. It was him. Her son. The one she whispered goodbye to in a hospital room under sterile lights. The one she'd never named. Cody. Little one. She didn't sleep that night. She stood barefoot on the porch just past midnight, wrapped in a blanket and bourbon haze. The moon was full, casting silver over everything. A light clicked on in the bunkhouse across the yard. A silhouette moved past the window. She wondered if he couldn't sleep either. She wondered if he felt it too. Footsteps behind her. Stanley again. Shirtless this time, jeans slung low on his hips, the bottle of rye in his hand glinting in the moonlight. "You all right?" he asked. She didn't answer. Just turned toward him slowly, eyes burning. He stepped close enough that she could smell sweat and whiskey and something earthbound that made her knees soften. He handed her the bottle. She took a sip. Their fingers brushed. They didn't speak. But everything between them was screaming. The wind changed direction just after noon. It swept in hard from the south, dry, sharp, and mean, snapping the clothes on the line and whispering something dangerous across the parched land. By the time the first column of smoke was visible beyond the ridge, Stanley had already saddled 2 horses. "Brush fire," he barked as Beverly stepped onto the porch. "Grab gloves. Bring water. We don't have time to wait for the county boys." She didn't argue. The fear that rippled through her gut wasn't about fire. It was something else. The way Stanley's voice dropped when danger came close. The way Cody had already taken off toward the ridge on horseback, like he had something to prove. "No." They raced across dry pasture, hooves pounding earth that hadn't tasted rain in weeks. Smoke curled in the distance, rising black against a pale blue sky. Crows fled overhead like they knew the world was about to burn. By the time they reached the source, flames were dancing in the grass, licking the old cedar fence posts and hungrily crawling toward the eastern tree line. It wasn't a wall of fire, not yet, but it would be soon. Stanley barked orders to the hands, tossing shovels and dragging chains from the bed of the old ranch truck. Cody ripped off his shirt and started beating at the flames near the base, sweat streaking down his spine. Beverly hesitated. She was out of breath, overdressed. The heat hit her like a slap, but she wasn't going to stand by. She jumped down and began clearing a path near the edge of the burn, dragging brush into a pile with her bare hands, ignoring the scratches. Stanley cursed when he saw her. "Damn it, Beverly. You don't know what you're doing. I'm not standing back while you burn to death, Barrett." Their eyes locked across the smoke. Fire snapped between them, literal and otherwise. "You're going to get yourself killed. Then don't let me." It was Cody who noticed the flames jumping to a dead oak just beyond the fence. "Wind's pushing it east," he shouted. Stanley pivoted, grabbed a shovel, and ran. Beverly followed, too fast, too reckless, tripping on a hidden root and tumbling to the ground just as the fire shifted direction. She hit hard. Pain exploded in her hip. Smoke closed in around her. Then she heard hooves. Cody. He skidded off his horse, grabbed her under the arms, and dragged her through the smoke with strength she didn't think he had. Her eyes blurred. She coughed, lungs on fire. He pulled her clear and dumped water over her shoulders, brushing embers from her shirt, hands frantic. "You okay? You okay?" he asked over and over. She nodded, chest heaving, grabbing his wrist to steady herself. And there it was. A birthmark, shaped like a crooked star on his right forearm. Her breath caught. Her vision doubled. She remembered tracing that same shape with her fingertip in a hospital room before they took him away. "Cody," she whispered. But he didn't hear her. He'd already turned back toward the flames. Later, after the fire was controlled and the sun had dipped behind the hills, the ranch was quiet again. Smoke still drifted in the distance, rising like regret. Stanley stormed into the barn, tossing gloves and tools aside. Beverly followed him in, limping slightly, her legs stained with soot and blood. "What the hell were you thinking?" he shouted, spinning on her. "I was trying to help. You're not built for this." She pushed him hard in the chest. Don't tell me what I'm built for. I just watched a 20-year-old kid risk his life for a woman he doesn't even know. Stanley's jaw tightened. He knew what he was doing. Did he? She fired back. Because I sure as hell didn't. He stepped closer. Too close. She didn't move. His voice dropped slow and rough. You can't keep putting yourself in danger because you feel guilty. Her heart thundered. He knew. He couldn't know. She licked her lips. I'm not guilty. I'm alive. He stared at her mouth. Barely. For one breathless second, everything stilled. Then his hand brushed her face, wiping ash from her cheek. It should have been tender. Wasn't. It was hungry. Their bodies didn't touch, but the space between them caught fire. Her lips parted, his eyes dropped, her skin burned from the inside out. But he stepped back. Said nothing. Turned. Left her standing there, heart pounding, hands clenched at her sides. That night, Beverly sat alone at the kitchen table, bandaging her knee with shaking hands. Outside, the crickets sang. Inside, her world spun. She stared at her reflection in the dark window. Saw a stranger. Saw a mother. Saw a fool. And somewhere deep in the barn she imagined Stanley tossing in his cot, just as restless. In the bunkhouse, Cody rolled onto his side, holding the baby blanket he kept hidden under his pillow, the only piece of his past he hadn't let go of. Whoa! Unaware that the woman he'd pulled from the fire was the woman who gave him life. The storm rolled in just before dusk, low and slow like it had something to say. Dark clouds stacked like bruises over the hills, wind rattling through the trees, and the sky threatening to split open. Beverly stood on the porch, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the horizon as thunder growled in the distance. She liked storms, always had. They made the whole world honest. Inside, Stanley moved through the house with quiet steps. He was staying in the guest room now, at least on paper. She still heard him pacing the halls at night.
Oh, that evening, the power blinked out. Just like that. Lights off, refrigerator hum gone. Silence swallowing everything except the wind. She found him in the kitchen, holding a flashlight in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other. "You cook without electricity?" he asked, eyebrows raised. She smirked. "I survive better without it." "I believe that." He handed her the bottle. She took a long pull, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and handed it back. Lightning lit the window behind him, just for a flash, but it was enough to see the lines in his face, the weight in his shoulders.
You look like hell, she said. You should see the other guy. He stepped closer, setting the flashlight on the table between them. The lantern glow cast flickering shadows across his jaw. She noticed the cut above his eyebrow, the burn on his forearm, the way his shirt clung to the muscles in his chest. And he noticed her noticing. That silence again. Their language. I should check on the horses, she said, even though she didn't mean it. You go out in this and you'll get yourself struck dead. Then you'll finally get some peace and quiet. He took the bottle back, poured 2 fingers into a chipped mug, and slid it across the table toward her. Why'd you really come back, Bev? She stared at the drink. Ranch is mine. Bullshit. Her eyes narrowed. You think you know me? I don't guess, he said, but I listen, and what I hear is someone running from something they ain't ready to face. She stood. So did he. You don't get to judge me. I'm not, he said, voice low. I'm trying to understand you. Her pulse throbbed at her throat. You think I don't carry guilt? That I don't wake up at night wishing I'd done it different? Stanley tilted his head. Done what different? Oh, she froze. For a second too long. His eyes sharpened. Beverly? She shook her head, tears building. I'm not ready for this. You sure? He asked gently. 'Cause I am. She turned, walking toward the hallway. He followed. She spun to face him in the narrow space between the kitchen and the guest room door. Rain hit the roof hard now, like nails on tin. They were inches apart. I lost him, she whispered. His brow furrowed. Who? Her voice cracked. A baby. I had a baby, years ago. No one knew, not even Roy. I gave him up before I even named him. They said not to. Said it'd be easier. Stanley didn't move. Didn't speak. And she hated him for it. Say something, she snapped. Judge me. Tell me I'm weak. His eyes dropped to her mouth. I'm not going to say any of that, he said, but I am going to kiss you if you don't stop me. She didn't stop him. The first brush was soft, like a question. The second was not. Her hands fisted in his shirt as his mouth claimed hers, hot and slow, like he'd been waiting for years. She gasped when his fingers found her hips, and he pressed her back against the wall, firm, but not forceful. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. His breath was ragged against her neck. Her fingernails scraped his back. Every touch was soaked in heat, history, and something that scared them both. But just as quickly as it started, she pulled away. Wait, she said, breathless. Stanley stepped back, hands in the air. Too far. No, she whispered. Just not yet. He nodded once, slow. She didn't explain, and he didn't ask. Instead, he stepped close again, this time slower, gentler, and brushed a damp strand of hair from her face. You didn't lose him, he said. Her eyes snapped up. What? You said you lost him, he repeated. But maybe he found you again. You ever think of that? She blinked fast. Why would you say that? He just looked at her. Too long. Too knowing. But then he stepped back and walked down the hallway toward the guest room, leaving her standing there with her pulse in her throat and her heart on the floor. She leaned against the wall, hand flat to her chest, trying to steady herself. Outside, the rain softened. Inside, everything else thundered. The sun came up too quiet. After the storm, the air hung still and heavy, as if the land was holding its breath. Beverly stood by the kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching the light creep across the pasture. The weight of what she said the night before hadn't faded. It only deepened. She could still feel Stanley's lips, still hear the echo of her confession. But that wasn't the thing keeping her awake. It was Cody. The way he'd looked at her in the firelight, the way he'd touched her arm, not like a stranger, not like a farmhand. Like something older. Something remembered. And now her hands trembled around the mug as the memory of his birthmark haunted her. It was him. She knew it in her bones now. And she had to tell him. She found him behind the barn, loading hay into the truck bed. His shirt was off, back slick with sweat under the rising heat. He moved slower than usual, tired, quiet. Cody, she said, stepping into the dirt. He turned, wiped his hands on his jeans. Ma'am. Her stomach twisted at the word. Don't call me that. He blinked, confused. What should I call you? She hesitated. The silence between them stretched like taut wire. "I need to talk to you," she said. "All right," he said. "What's going on?" She stepped closer. Her heart pounded so loud she thought he might hear it. I know this is going to sound strange, and maybe you've already felt it too, I don't know. But I believe I'm your—" "I already know," he said softly. Her breath caught. "What?" He glanced away toward the field. "I got a letter," he said. "A few months ago, from a lawyer. It had your name on it." Her knees weakened. She grabbed the edge of the truck bed to steady herself. "You knew?" "I didn't believe it at first," he said. "Didn't want to. Thought maybe it was some kind of mistake. But then I met you." He looked at her, then really looked. "And I knew." Her eyes filled. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I didn't know what you wanted. Because I didn't want to believe the woman who gave me away was you." She flinched. He stepped back. "That sounds harsh, I know. But you asked." "I didn't want to," she whispered. "They made me. My parents, my whole life. They told me it would ruin everything, that I didn't have a choice." He crossed his arms. "And you listened." "I was 17, she said. Alone, terrified. I never stopped thinking about you." He swallowed hard. "You gave me a blanket," he said. "The nurse told me you left it with me. I kept it, still have it." "Oh," she started crying, hand to her mouth. "I called you little one when they let me hold you. They told me not to name you, but I did anyway, just once." His face crumpled, the hardness melting into something young, something wounded. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this," he said. "You don't have to do anything," she said, stepping forward. "Just let me be here. Let me try." He didn't stop her as she wrapped her arms around him, trembling. He stood stiff at first, then slowly, hesitantly, hugged her back. It wasn't warm. It wasn't forgiving. But it was a start. Stanley watched them from the hill above the barn, leaning against the fence with his arms crossed and jaw tight. He'd known. He'd known it for months. Roy's letter hadn't just told him who Cody was. It had asked him to protect both of them, to let the truth come when it was ready. But now that it was out there, he didn't feel relief. He felt something else. Something sharp. He didn't belong in their moment. He didn't know where he belonged anymore. Later that night, Beverly knocked on Stanley's door. He didn't answer right away. When he did, he looked tired. "You knew?" she said. He nodded. "You let me fall apart. You let me look that boy in the face every day not knowing who he was." "You needed to see it on your own," he said. "Roy made me promise." She stared at him. "You kept his promise. What about mine?" "I didn't owe you that," he said. "Not back then. You owe me something now." He stepped aside and let her in. The cabin smelled like cedar and whiskey. She sat down hard in the chair by the window, eyes full of fire. "Do you hate me?" She asked. "No." "Do you think I'm weak?" "No." "Then what?" He knelt beside her. "I think you're stronger than you've ever been. I think the past broke you. And now you're finally walking again." She looked away, tears falling quietly. He reached up and touched her cheek, fingers calloused and warm. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. He leaned in, forehead to hers. Dust settles slow, Bev, but it does settle. And for the first time in 20 years, she believed it might. The town rodeo had always been more than bulls and broncs. It was where ranch hands blew their paychecks, where old-timers leaned on rails swapping stories, and where anyone carrying a broken heart could pretend for one dusty night that they didn't still feel it. Beverly hadn't planned to go, but Cody had asked her. Stanley had said he was competing, roping calves, riding rough stock. Nothing flashy, just the kind of grit that earns you quiet respect. So Beverly put on her best denim and tied her hair up, told herself this wasn't a second chance, it was just a Saturday night. But as she stepped into the arena lights, dust rising like smoke around her boots, she felt something stir deep inside her. Mo. This town knew her as Roy's niece. Some of the older folks might have remembered when she left all those years ago. None of them knew she was walking into the stands with her son. They took their seats just above the chute, the air thick with the smell of manure, sweat, and popcorn. Cody tapped his foot, hands restless on his jeans. "You nervous?" she asked. "Always am," he said. "But it's not about the ride. It's about what happens after." She looked at him. "You mean people watching?" He shook his head. "I mean deciding whether to keep doing this or leave it behind." Her chest tightened. "Where would you go?" "Don't know," he said. "Wyoming, maybe. Oklahoma. Wherever the dust takes me." She wanted to tell him to stay, wanted to ask for more time, but she didn't. She just nodded. Stanley entered the ring to a modest cheer. He didn't play it up, just tipped his hat to the crowd and tightened the rope on his SaddleHorn. When the calf burst from the chute, Stanley moved like liquid steel, smooth, efficient, deadly focused. The crowd clapped. Someone behind her muttered, "Damn good run." But Beverly didn't cheer. She just watched the way his eyes found her in the stands when it was over. No smile, no wave, just that look, the one that always found her, no matter how far away she sat. After his run, she found him behind the pens, alone, sweating, breathing hard. "You're good at that," she said. He tossed his rope onto a hook. "Not as good as I used to be. Still better than most." He didn't answer. She stepped closer. "You mad I didn't come sooner?" He looked at her then. "Number just mad I couldn't make you stay when you did." She felt the words land like hoofbeats in her chest. "I was scared," she whispered. "I know." He moved toward her, slow, like he didn't want to startle whatever fragile thing had grown between them. She didn't step back. "I saw you with him," Stanley said. Beverly's eyes burned. "He's still angry." "He will be," Stanley replied. "He's got to break that in himself, same way you broke the truth." She swallowed. "You think he'll ever come to see me as his mother?" "No." Stanley's voice was low. "He already does. That's why he doesn't know how to act around you." They stood close, the din of the rodeo around them like background noise to something older and deeper. She touched his arm, just once. "I'm sorry I didn't trust you." "I'm not mad about that either," he said. "Then what are you?" He gave her that same unreadable look. "Ready." And when he leaned in, it wasn't rough this time. It was tender, earned. She kissed him back, slow, aching, no urgency, no edge, just the weight of every wall finally falling. They didn't say anything after. Didn't have to. Cody didn't win his event that night. But he rode hard, took the fall like a man, dirt on his teeth and pride in his gut. Beverly waited near the fence as he limped toward her. "You okay?" she asked. "Busted my knee, but I'll live." He glanced past her, eyes landing on Stanley standing quietly in the shadows. Cody stepped up and extended a hand. Stanley took it. No words passed. But Beverly saw the way Stanley clapped him on the shoulder. Saw the way Cody's jaw clenched, not in anger. In emotion. Later, as they walked toward the truck, Cody said, "He's good at that, teaching without saying much." She nodded. "He's good at a lot of things." Cody stopped walking. "I want to leave," he said. "Not forever, just I need to figure out who I am without this place always hanging over me." Tears sprang to her eyes, but she kept them there. "Then go," she said, "and come back when you're ready." He leaned forward and kissed her on the cheek. "I will," he said. "Thanks, Mom." The word hit her like a sunrise. And when she turned away to hide her face, Stanley was already waiting by the truck, keys in hand, smile on his lips. That night, under a sky split with stars, Beverly lay in Stanley's arms. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't map out the future. They just breathed. Together. And when she finally fell asleep, her fingers tangled with his, she dreamed of dust finally settling. Not gone, but calm. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she had to run. Autumn came slow to Split Creek. The kind of slow that crept in under the doors and curled in the corners of your chest. Leaves started to turn, golden and burnt orange, and the heat gave way to wind that whispered change through the trees. Beverly stood by the paddock in the early morning light, coffee warm in her hand, watching the horses move like ghosts through the mist. The ranch had changed since she got here, or maybe she had. She wasn't sure anymore where the difference began. Behind her, Stanley approached with a bucket of feed and that steady, deliberate gait she'd come to know without looking. "You always this quiet in the morning?" he asked. She smiled, just trying not to scare off the peace. He stood beside her, both of them leaning on the fence like old friends, except the way his arm brushed hers didn't feel like friendship. It felt like a claim. "You sleep all right?" he asked. "Better than I used to," she said. "Still not great." "I could fix that," he muttered. She turned to him, raised a brow. He didn't smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched just enough. Cody spent most of the day in the workshop, cleaning gear and tightening up the old tack that had started to wear thin. He didn't talk much, but when Beverly brought him lunch, he paused and sat with her on the porch without needing to be asked. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't talk about the future. They just sat and shared the quiet between them. Until he broke it. "I'm leaving in the morning," he said. Her heart stilled. He looked over at her, not defensive, just honest. "I found a ranch in Wyoming. Big outfit. They've got a bunkhouse and they need a hand who doesn't ask too many questions." She swallowed hard. "You sure that's what you want?" He nodded. "I need to know who I am outside of this place. Outside of you." She didn't flinch. Didn't cry. She just nodded. "Then you should go." He looked away. "You're not mad?" "No," she said. "But I'll miss you every damn second." His eyes got glassy, but he blinked it back. "I left once too," she added. "Difference is, I didn't come back for a long time, just don't take as long as I did. He chuckled. Deal. When he hugged her, it was tighter than the last time. Longer. And when he pulled away, he pressed something into her hand. A folded-up piece of paper. She opened it later when she was alone. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know where I came from now, and I'm not ashamed of it. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I didn't know who you were. P.S. Stanley's not half bad, but don't tell him I said that. That night the stars hung low, thick as spilled salt across a black sky. Beverly and Stanley sat on the porch, sharing a blanket, the bottle of rye between them. "You're really letting him go?" Stanley asked. "I never had him in the first place," she said. "Not really. Letting go is the only thing I've ever done right." He shook his head. "You gave him what you could, Bev. That matters." She looked at him. "You still believe in second chances?" "I believe in the ones that get earned." She smiled, soft and tired. "Think I've earned you?" He turned toward her, took her chin gently in his hand. "You earned me the day you stepped off that porch and didn't run." She leaned in, forehead to his. "And what about you? You earned me?" "Hell no," he said, "but I'm still trying." She laughed then, a real one, the kind that cracked something loose inside her chest, the kind that felt like breathing after holding it in for too long. And when he kissed her, it wasn't fiery this time. It was warm, patient, lasting, like something worth keeping. In the morning, she stood by the gate as Cody threw his duffel in the back of the truck. He hugged her again, quicker this time, but it didn't mean less. He shook Stanley's hand. Then he climbed in and drove off down the gravel road without looking back. But Beverly didn't cry. She stood tall in the dust, arms crossed, eyes forward. "He'll come back," Stanley said behind her. "I know," she whispered. They walked the pasture in silence, letting the morning soak into their skin. When they reached the old cottonwood tree near the north fence, Stanley stopped. He pulled something from his pocket. A folded, yellowed letter. He handed it to her. She opened it slowly. It was Roy's handwriting. "Stanley, Bev's stronger than she knows. She's going to come home broken. Don't try to fix her. Just love her till she remembers what whole feels like." Her hand shook. "He showed me that before he passed," Stanley said. "But I didn't understand it until now." Beverly looked at him through a blur of tears. "You think I'm whole?" He reached up, brushing her hair from her eyes. "No," he said, "but you're getting there." And for once in her life, she believed it. The first frost hit the pasture like a quiet warning. Grass stiffened in the morning light, dusted in silver. The horses huffed warm clouds into the air. Somewhere beyond the barn, a hawk screamed overhead and vanished into the empty sky. Beverly watched her breath rise in the cold from the front porch, wrapped in Stanley's coat, mug warm in her hands. Everything felt different. Not louder, not busier, just still. Settled. It had been 6 weeks since Cody left. And every morning she still looked down the road. She didn't cry anymore. Didn't ache the same way. But every day he wasn't there. She felt it. Stanley came out behind her, slow, pulling on his gloves. His hair was damp from the shower, his eyes still heavy from sleep. "You look like you're waiting on a ghost," he said. "Maybe I am." He stepped beside her, slipped a thermos into her hand. "Then he'll be back," They always come back when the frost starts to bite. She gave him a side glance. You're not that poetic. I had a good teacher, he muttered, stealing a sip from her cup. The ranch had found its rhythm again. Stanley handled the cattle rotations. Beverly took over finances, repairs, and small-town politics she never thought she'd care about. The roof still leaked in the tack shed, and the well pump needed replacing. But it all felt like theirs now. Not Roy's legacy. Not her burden. Something new. Something built on pain, but rooted in choice. One afternoon she found Stanley in the barn, hammering a new latch onto the stall door. You remember the old tack trunk? She asked, wiping her hands. He nodded. Roy used to keep a box of letters in there. I found one you haven't seen yet. She held it out, folded carefully. Stanley took it, opened it, and read silently. Stan, if she's reading this, you did it. You got her back. I don't know how, and I don't care. Just don't forget to tell her what you never said the first time. You've always been good with fences, but this girl, she needs gates, open ones. Roy. Stanley folded the letter, tucked it into his back pocket. She ever tell you she loved you? Beverly asked. Once, he said. Then she left. You ever tell her? No. He looked at her. Not until it was too late. She nodded slowly. Don't wait that long again, she said. He stepped close, slow and certain, calloused hand to her cheek. I love you, he said. And the way he said it, like it was truth, not risk, made her chest cave and her knees nearly buckle. She whispered it back before her lips met his. And this time, it didn't feel like fire. It felt like home. 3 days later, a truck rolled down the drive. Beat-up Ford. Dust-streaked windows. One duffel in the back. Beverly didn't breathe until it came to a stop and the door opened. Cody stepped out. Taller somehow. Leaner. Eyes clear. He didn't wave, didn't speak. He just walked up to the porch where she stood frozen and set his boots down on the bottom step. Hope it's not too late to visit, he said. Her hands flew to her mouth. It's never too late, she whispered. Stanley stepped out behind her. Cody glanced at him, then nodded. Boss. Kid. They shook hands. And just like that, a full circle closed. That night, the three of them sat around the kitchen table with chili bubbling on the stove and cornbread steaming in the pan. Cody shared stories from Wyoming, bad horses, hard men, wind that never quit. He laughed more than she'd ever seen. Stanley mostly listened. But his eyes stayed soft every time Beverly reached over to refill Cody's bowl or brush her hand across the boy's shoulder. Later, as the dishes dried and the night got quiet, Beverly stepped outside alone. The moon was high. The stars sharp. Stanley joined her a minute later, wrapping his arms around her from behind. You all right? He asked. She nodded. I think, she said slowly, I'm finally not afraid of losing him anymore. Stanley kissed her temple. That's 'cause he's not lost. Not anymore. She leaned back against him. And in the quiet that followed, she heard something she hadn't noticed in a long time. The sound of her own breath. Steady. Easy. Like the dust inside her had finally settled. If this story stirred something in you, if you felt the dust settle in your own heart, then don't write off just yet. Hit that like button to show your support, and subscribe to SaddleHorn Stories so you never miss another tale of grit, love, and second chances out here in the modern West. We've got more heartfelt Western stories coming your way. Stories that cut deep, burn slow, and stay with you long after the credits roll. Drop a comment below and tell us, should Beverly and Stanley tie the knot? Will Cody come back to take over the ranch one day? What would you have done in her boots? Your voice shapes what we create next. Thanks for watching. This is SaddleHorn Stories, where the truth rides tall and the heart always finds its way home.